Hi everyone, I'm Josephine Burgin. I'm the product owner of the European Nucleotide Archive, and I'll be talking today about our position as an ELIXIR core data resource and within the wider biodata resource landscape, and then go into some detail about the benefits of connectivity and our efforts and future plans to have better global representation of sequencing data as well as resource sustainability. So to begin with, just to introduce the European Nucleotide Archive, we provide scientific record for sequencing data. This means when people publish publications, they can archive their raw data, assemblies, annotation, as well as additional metadata such as projects and samples in the ENA. So the archive was established in the early 1980s and since then has been extended for new technologies and applications as needed. We're a very broad generalist database through various layers of interpretation and context and cover all taxa. We have submission services as well as discovery and retrieval software and provide support through help desk and training. In addition to the archive itself, we provide platforms for data management and coordination, as well as project-specific data hubs and portals as well. So the ENA is an ELIXIR core data resource and sits within this ecosystem of biodata resources. On the left here is sort of a demonstration of some of the connectivity with other core data resources. This may not be fully comprehensive, but it demonstrates the feed of data from services as well as services from the ENA, as well as the interoperability between them. So being recognized as an ELIXIR core data resource, as well as a global core biodata resource by the GBC, sort of helps others recognize the value in this as well. We feel that an integrated system of biodata resources increases the value in this genomics data. So we're not looking at just the raw data in the assemblies. This feeds into, for example, Ensemble, who do further annotation. It feeds into the translations feed into UniProt, for example. So the ENA is part of the International Nucleotide Sequence Data Collaboration, INSDC. So this means we're part of a data exchange initiative that's lasted a number of years between the ENA as well as GenBank and ESRE and CBI and DDBJ. So all three of us contribute to submission and distribution of the global comprehensive set of sequencing data. One of the aims that we have sort of going forward is to operate more globally and sustainably, so trying to move towards a sort of more global view with the ENA. And sort of the drivers for this going forwards are a sort of mixture of scientific, geographic, and technical. So scientifically, how sequencing is used is broadening and diversifying, and there's many new technologies, new methods, and there's a large number of expertise required to be able to support this. So a benefit to sort of having a more global network that forms the basis of resources such as the ENA means that you can have the expertise more close to the data. So geographically as well, there's parts of the world that become powerful scientific forces and large producers of the data. So we want to be able to engage and involve these new growing services in the global open data landscape. And then also technically capturing this world's ever increasing data volumes of sequencing data provides challenges for network, compute and storage. So more distributed operation and harnessing this connectivity between these biodata services will disperse the service requirements and reduce the per server demand. So our approach to sort of this new global ENA that we want to work towards is first to consider the developing and extending our existing ENA data brokering network, which I will introduce in a minute. And we want to be able to engage these new players in the sequence data archiving and management world, as well as discussions towards broadening INSDC participation as well. So the data brokering network, a data submissions broker within the ENA is a group that provides tools or services that basically aid the data flow between the data producers and the ENA archive itself. So we have a long history of brokering systems that provide this kind of support, and they can be generalist or they can have data type or domain specific expertise, which supports, as I mentioned, being able to have this expertise closer to the data, which means improving interoperability and the use of standards, for example. So at the moment, we have 32 active brokers in the network, with broker data accounting for 16% of the total data submitted to the ENA. In the last year, we saw 43% growth of the broker data and 10% growth of the active brokers as well. So this has already begun growing. So an example of use case and the demonstrated usefulness of a brokering network is the Global Health and SARS-CoV-2 data brokering network. So this is an active network of national public health data brokers providing SARS-CoV-2 data flow into the ENA. So since the pandemic, we've had 16 new brokers established across that time period, of which still 6 have remained active, 1 to be resumed. And essentially, this network of brokers has meant that through the pandemic, we've had national support close to the data, meaning that the data is standardized before it reaches the archive. And this has the benefit that it means we can easily share the data in a systematic and automated way in, for example, services, secondary services such as the COVID-19 data portal, which combines different data types of SARS-CoV-2 data and related data into one easy place to retrieve this. Another example demonstrating usefulness of data brokering is in biodiversity genomics, where we have COPO, which is a data broker maintained at the Earlham Institute, who provide sample management services for a number of biodiversity initiatives, such as the Darwin Tree of Life, the Aquatic Symbiosis Genomics Project, and the European Reference Genome Atlas. So these projects are producing a large amount of raw assembled data, as well as a number of symbionts, metagenomes, all kinds of data types. But their sample management all goes through the COPO system, which provides specific sample management services, but also ensures that all the data follows project-specific standards that are specifically within COPO, but also enables the interoperability across the projects following more core standards that are within the ENA. It also means we can do things like tagging each of these data that comes into the ENA with specific projects, because we know they're coming through this service, and that means they're really easy to then pull out and provide to the users in a specific route for specific projects, as demonstrated on the right here, by data portals maintained by another group at ELIXIR, run by Pete Harrison's team. COPO also publishes the samples immediately in ENA biosamples, meaning the data can be linked from anywhere in the consortium. So even though the samples themselves are provided by COPO, it means that you can create this interoperability and linking through anywhere in the consortium. And it's not just the ENA who are intending to harness the connectivity of biodata resources and engage new players in sequence archiving. The ISMB are beginning to discuss how to enable broader participation and how we can better support the globally comprehensive data in a more globally representative way. So thank you to everyone who works on the European Nucleotide Archive, and thank you for listening.